I guess we can begin. Do I need to hit the gavel?
Sure.
Well, I call this regularly scheduled commission meeting for the South Washington County Telecommunications Commission. We're here all gathered together in person for the first time in quite some time, and it's my first time as the committee chair sitting here in person, so bear with me as I kind of work through this. So here we are, Thursday, June 24th, 2021, and so we'll be conducting our agenda for the evening. So, Mr. Executive Director, would you go ahead and do the roll call for us?
Sure. Commissioner James.
Here.
Bloom.
Here.
Date.
Here.
Councilmember Olson.
Here.
Councilmember Ingman.
Here.
Downs.
Here.
Ullman.
Here.
And we also have Councilmember Thiede.
Here.
Randy Olson.
Present.
Myself, Executive Director Mark Martinez, and staff members Lonnie Garland and Ann Schweisguth. That concludes the roll call.
Very good, thank you. All right, well, we've all been sent the agenda ahead of time. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Very good, we have a motion and a second. We want to do the roll for the approval of the agenda.
I think we can just,
You don't have to do a roll anymore.
Okay,
Yep,
oh, really? Because we're in person, or?
that's correct.
Okay, really?
Just go
All
through
right.
the all in favor.
Okay. All right, item 4, public.
No, you have to take a vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so we can just do a voice vote, okay.
Yes.
So all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, that has passed, thank you. Again, bear with me here, folks. Okay.
Rusty.
Moving on, public comment. Mr. Director, do you have any notification of public
I've not
comments
received
tonight?
any.
All right, very good. Consent agenda. Like I said, we've all seen the packet, so we've all had a chance to review. Do I have a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda?
I'll move the consent agenda.
Okay,
Second.
all right. All those in favor indicate by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Very good. All right, moving on to the heart of the meeting. So, reports time. All right, Mark.
Yes.
We'll turn it over to you for your executive director report.
Thank you, Chair. Pull it up here for our viewers. Yes, this is a review of work in progress through June of this year. As you can see, we've completed Q1 projects, and Q2 EOC project at Woodbury Public Safety will begin work the next month in July as part of Q3. And we're anticipating some upgrades in the commission office, but really not much more. That's been previously approved for capital projects for the remainder of the year. When I go through the budget here in a moment, we'll see the impact that some of the cost savings that we've made with the budget and that we've completed some of the budgets, we have a little bit of a surplus that I'll indicate here shortly. As we look towards Q1 of 2022, that's when we anticipate the Newport Council Chamber new construction project will have the AV integration sometime in the late Q1 or maybe as late as Q2 of 2022. I think their move-in date right now is around May of next year is their goal. We're still in negotiations with Comcast regarding our franchise renewal, and our attorney Mike Bradley and myself have reviewed some of the recent revisions that Comcast has made with the Chair James. And if you happen to be at the executive committee meeting last month, our attorney Mike Bradley gave a Twin Cities cable franchising summary, and we talked about what to expect as we go forward with the renewal process. Round out the report by saying that strategic plan is been reintroduced into the staff phase. I'm looking for staff input into our strategic plan and finalizing that strategic plan as soon as possible. We have a meeting scheduled for next week on the 29th to gather the staff's input. This will be additional input because we did meet as a group together to start, and now we're kind of revising and refining the plan. The core elements of the plan really won't change. What we have is our return of value to the member cities, and then we've added in the strategic plan community engagement and diversifying our revenue and long-term sustainability. And so it's really those two pieces that I plan to get more staff input so I can finalize that document, bring it back to the commission for final approval, and as well as the member cities as well. Some of the community engagement that we've done as part of the strategic plan, we plan to have the 3rd edition of the newsletter go out in July. We also have we're sponsoring a night at Woodbury Starlight Cinema as part of the promotion, as part of promoting our water documentary on July 22nd. We also recently got approval to screen the water documentary in August with a big statewide state agency kind of conference. The name escapes me right now, but it'll be in August, which is really great for our organization and getting the word out about the water documentary. The feedback we've gotten about it has been really great. They wanted to screen it actually twice at that conference. So it's in St. Cloud, and so I'll keep the commission updated on that. Once we have the strategic plan finalized, we're going to input that into our new hire job description and looking to make sure that we're identifying the needs of the organization and searching for a candidate that meets those needs going forward. Some of it may be very similar to what the producers have been doing, but we're looking at new options, new possibilities, ways of reaching out to subscribers and the community. And, you know, as that finalizes, I'll be able to report back on that as well. The technology committee is meeting tomorrow. We have a lot on our plate. We'll be looking at 2022 projects. We'll also be looking at long-term planning around the Central Park design and some other updates that are happening internally. Still working on the policy audit. I'm going to start with the financial policies and had hoped to have that wrapped up by this meeting, but they haven't been completed yet. I did host, as president of MACTA, I hosted a local franchise authority LFA leadership meeting on May 26th, a summit, and it was great. We had about 25 leaders throughout the state to discuss plans for shoring up franchise funding long-term. And we hope to build over the next 3 years. It's a heavy lift, and so we need participation across the state to build bipartisan support around funding, community media funding. And so we're gathering, MACTA's in the process of gathering input from local franchise leaders, from the League of Minnesota Cities, and other partners, so that way we can build a strong coalition and also communication tools as we talk to elected officials at all levels about the importance of community media and funding it long term. Part of that project is building an access center legislative map. The Alliance for Community Media created last year a base map of just access centers location throughout the country. And I was given the Minnesota portion. And what MACTA is intending to do is add a legislative map layer on top of that as part of the communication tools to help other access centers and other executive directors reach out to the local officials and have conversations, invite them into their centers and discuss some of the great things that, all access centers had achieved over the pandemic. Every organization pivoting to do remote meetings and really try to educate on the funding mechanism, because we're uniquely funded through the franchise fees. Much different than, say, PBS and public broadcasting.
So Mark, what is an
Yes.
access center?
It's SWCTC, it's other access centers, public access, educational access, and government access, commonly referred to as PEG systems.
Okay,
That's an access center.
okay.
Some organizations over the last 35, 40 years, these access centers have evolved in different ways. Some do very traditional public access still. Some have focused on educational component, and SWCTC focuses on government access.
Okay.
Tonight, we'll hear from Harrington Langer Associates. Anna Anderson will be presenting the 2020 financial audit. And that's just about it for my report. I'd like to turn it over to our operations manager, Ann Schweisguth, to provide an operations report.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I feel like I should be in like a little box here. I'm going to start my report with some good news. We won some awards. The Minnesota Association of Government Communicators announced the winners of the Northern Lights Awards. And Psychotherapy, which is a video we worked with the city of Woodbury on, about a man who rode his bicycle on every road in Washington County, won a silver award in the community interest category, which is great. That also won a National Telly Award. It won a bronze in the general documentary category. So that's awesome. Also, the video that we did called Stay Lee Vag Away, which is, if anybody knows, Public Safety Director Lee Vag, he's about 6 feet tall. So we used him as a physical example of how far you should stay away from other people in the park during COVID. So that won a bronze in the public health and public safety category. We started a new business series called Made in Cottage Grove. This is something that the city of Cottage Grove wanted us to do, to highlight especially businesses in the industrial park. And the first one that we've done was produced by Elena Myers, government producer, about Renewal by Anderson, which, correct me if I'm wrong, the largest employer in Cottage Grove?
3M is the largest employer in
Okay,
Cottage
so maybe
Grove.
second.
But they're right up there.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to show you a bit of this piece.
Renewal by Anderson has been around for about 26 years and dedicated to becoming a world-class homeowner experience company. It's about making a difference. We go into people's homes. That's typically your most prized possession, your biggest investments. We take that very seriously and we want to honor that, and we want to knock your socks off. We know a lot of people have had a bad home improvement project in their lives, and we want to be that best home improvement project and find out when we do that, we make a difference in their lives. And so we take a lot of pride in that. I would say one of the things that sets us apart from a lot of people in the replacement window business is we do it all. There are a lot of places that install somebody else's manufactured window, but we obviously do it all for you. And I would say we have what we call signature service. It's all about how we take care of the customer, and it goes back to that vision of being a world-class homeowner experience company. We want to hire people that care, want to go above and beyond and take care of our customers.
It's a diverse culture. It's very inclusive. A great place for career development where we feel like our employees can make a difference. We pride ourselves in innovation and learning.
It's the first time in the history of J.D. Powers that one company has won both of their awards because they have one for manufacturing and one for retail. And so to be recognized by a company like J.D. Powers with both awards was quite a victory for Renewal. Renewal by Anderson is very proud that we were recently named by Forbes as one of the top companies for diversity and inclusion. It's been a huge effort of ours. We want everybody to feel welcome here and everybody to feel like they can thrive here. Creating more jobs is something that we're very proud of. And going back to 2016, we did our first expansion and added 200 more jobs. And we just had another expansion in 2020. So we went from 350,000 square feet to 700,000 square feet, over 1,000 jobs. And it feels really good to be a part of a thriving community where we're adding back to that community.
So that was the first in that series. We have actually filmed at Modern Automotive Performance. That's going to be the second one. We have a couple more scheduled for later this year, I believe, North Star Sheets and Advance Corporation. So Cottage Grove's excited about that. Oh, let's not watch it again. The other video I want to show you is about Woodbury's urban forest. The sustainability department at Woodbury connected with us, and they wanted to make videos telling people about some of the ways that Woodbury is being sustainable. We've been doing some stories about solar power, electric vehicles, native plantings. This is one of those in those series about the urban forest, and this was produced by lead producer Bob McSherry. Oh, and let me tell you one thing. Bob recently got his drone license, so all the aerials in this video, Bob did. So he did a great job.
My main function with the City of Woodbury is to update the city's tree inventory, trees that are in parks, right-of-ways, and along trails. My process of updating the tree inventory is finding the trees as they correspond to our mapping software, updating the DBH, which is diameter at breast height, as well as the general condition of the tree on a scale of 1 to 5. Having a tree inventory is important because it gives the city foresters an idea of the makeup of the trees in Woodbury. One of the main issues that we have if you have too many trees of one type is that if a disease or a forest pest like emerald ash borer comes along and wipes out a large swath of a population, that area will be heavily deforested and it takes a toll on the urban forest. In the past year, the city has removed approximately 300 ash trees from parks and trails. The city is reforesting those areas with a larger diversity of trees, so it's not just one main type of trees, because if another issue comes along, we want it to be prepared so that not one large percentage of the population will be affected. Some of the trees that we were planting in these parks are ginkgo, serviceberry, catalpa, hackberry, and many more. Many of the trees that we are planting are native to Minnesota, such as the Kentucky coffee tree, which has a misleading name, but it is native to Minnesota.
So Bob did a great job on that. Bob just finished a video about Officer James Stoffel and K9 Ruby that'll be coming out next week. And I would recommend if you have a chance to watch that, you should. It's kind of a tearjerker. So he does great work. Last but not least, work for hire. We just finished a job for the Metropolitan Council. They hired us to do drone footage of their 9 wastewater treatment plants. So I spent a lot of time walking around a wastewater treatment plant. It doesn't smell as bad as you think. So it was actually quite interesting. What they do there is pretty incredible, and from the air, it's really kind of neat to see. So that is actually being invoiced now. And we were hired by Washington County to do a Welcome to Washington County video. That video is in the stage of figuring out the shot list right now. They've approved the script, and we'll be shooting that shortly. So we're diversifying funds. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. All right, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann.
So I'm going to turn it over to Lonnie here for technology report. Lonnie Garland.
Evening, everyone. Hang on just one second. We'll switch over computers. I can't be outdone by Ann. She had video. I got slides. I thought it'd be nice to show everybody. We did some installs at Eagle Valley and River Oaks Golf Course. This is at Eagle Valley. This is the touch panel you'd see when you walked into the room. It controls cameras and everything in the room, basically. It's pretty nice setup. They actually went with a monitor on a cart system that allows them to place the monitor in the room in different locations. It actually gives them more flexibility when they do banquets. So they have the ability to put it in the front of the room or to the side of the room, depending on the situation that they need. Easy, you wheel it to where you want it, plug it in, boom, works, right, Rob?
Yep, it does.
But there's a camera up on top too, and that camera is a pan tilt zoom camera, so you can follow people in the room. That's a tight shot of the one on the wall. There's one on the wall, one on the monitor. So there's actually 2 cameras in this room. Another touch panel that is actually on the cart. So if you are not by the wall and you're presenting and you're by the monitor, you can actually run everything from another touch panel. And there's actually another touch panel in the pro shop that allows them to play music from a Sonos device. And so they can select different music to put in the pro shop and the bar area too. So it's a real nice system, a big upgrade from what they had. It gives them lots of flexibility. So in golf courses, we did River Oaks as well. This is something that they love to death. This is a cart with a monitor on it, and they basically just plug it in, and it shows sports, golf, and it's been a big hit for these guys. They leave it out there, people get refreshments, sit outside, and they're able to watch golf, whatever. So I'm waiting for them to ask for another one, to be honest. So, and the other thing that this allows them to do, they can actually wheel it into their conference room or into their banquet room, and it becomes another source to view things on. So has lots of flexibility there as well. This is in their bar area. We actually turned their bar area into a conference area. There's a small camera, you can see it at the bottom of the monitor. It's a camera, microphone, and speaker all in one. So you can walk in with your laptop, connect to it wirelessly, and you can do a Zoom meeting right in that area. It's good for about 15 feet. So, 6, 7 people is about what it's good for, but just gives them a little bit more flexibility. This is their banquet room. I took a wide shot just so you can see. It's basically one big room that can be divided into 2 rooms. So there's a curtain that divides this room, and then you have 2 separate rooms that basically mirror each other. Both have cameras, both have audio, wireless mics. Or if you open the curtain like this is, it becomes one big room, shares everything. I believe they had a couple banquets here already for sporting events, and they had the monitor next to the presenter, and they were actually playing a video on the monitor, shooting it with a camera so parents at home could watch the Zoom and see the video that they were playing. It was kind of a neat setup. So again, lots of flexibility. It's a horrible picture I took of that monitor. I apologize. This is the camera that we installed. These are the cameras that are on both big monitors in the banquet room. So each room has this kind of camera. It's simple tracking. It can zoom in, zoom out is about all it does. This is in their pro shop. The nice thing about these monitors that I'm showing you is they're repurposed. We took them out of the banquet room that they had and we repurposed them in here, so we kept the cost down. So that's basically the slides that I have. But I just wanted to, I hardly ever show you guys what we do, and so it's kind of nice to see, well, this is what we've done. Big improvements for both areas, and it's nice to give them the flexibility that they need to do those things. Some other improvements we're working on the EOC Center. I think Mark mentioned this in his report. We're trying to make that user-friendly and up-to-date in case they ever need to use it for any emergencies, but it also will give them flexibility to use it for other things. So that will start the last week in July and should be finished the first week in August. So hopefully that, and we gave that bid to AVI, just if you're curious. And really, we're doing some upgrades at our offices. We're trying to redo our conference rooms. You talk about Anderson windows? Oh, there's a chance that we might be able to upsell our conference area. And so we're actually putting in conferencing abilities there with cameras, similar to what you saw in the slides. that will allow us to, if, say we have a client in and they need to do a Zoom meeting, we could give them that option in our conference room. Right now, we're unable to do that in our own conference room. So we're looking at updating our conference room, larger monitor, like a Polycom camera with a microphone speaker and all that. So those are some things we've been looking at upgrading just at our system. We are researching a new playback system. We use Tightrope right now. We've used it, well, I've been there 5 years, and it was installed before I started. So it's at end of life. It's still running Windows 7, which is not supported anymore. So we're either gonna have to update to a newer system with them or look for another option like Cactus or a Cactus. I say it wrong. Castus. I say it wrong every time. Anyway, it's another company that does playback for PEG systems like ours. And maybe some new network switches in our office too. We're running at the end of, we're still running Cat 5 and we're gonna start updating that for some other things we wanna do down the line. We hired Damon Price, who's an IT specialist. Super sharp guy, has done a lot of installs, AV installs, really good with audio, Dante audio and those kind of things, good with video. He's already fixed a couple things for us that we didn't have to call EVI on, which is, or any other vendor for that matter, which is nice, saved us some money on that end. So it's good to have him on board. I've given him a long list, so he'll be busy for a while. And that's about all I have. I don't really have anything else unless you have questions for me.
So you guys are our go-to. If we have any problems, we should call you. And
Call
maybe-
us, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you know, and that's the great thing. I always try to pride ourselves on being there for you guys. So if you ever need us for anything, just call us and we try to come as quickly as possible to get it resolved. If we can't fix it or we can't figure out an issue, we'll get a vendor and they can. So that's what we're working with Brian right now on the fire station.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have that fixed. We'll have somebody out there tomorrow to work on that, so.
Okay.
Anything else? Thanks, have a good night.
Thanks, Lonnie.
Thanks, Lonnie and Ann. I'm happy to take any questions. I did think of two more things, quick things I'd like to add, which Lonnie had briefly mentioned. We are looking at a new partnership with Renewal by Anderson potentially, and also a new partnership with Washington Schools, ISD 833. They've contacted us and asked us if we could help them with their board meetings. So we're working on a process to help them with their board meetings with our part-time staff. Then going back to your question, Chair, about access centers and talking about MACTA's work, long-term work on sustainability and long-term funding, really one of the key things I wanted to mention here is that municipalities across the state are losing funding through cable franchising. You know, it's slowly being reduced, and so this work is also really to help municipalities regain, maintain their local control and use of the public right-of-way. So just wanted to add that.
Right.
I'll do it.
Anything on the treasurer report or legal that you want to cover?
In your packet, I included the actuals for Q1,
Yep.
and that was something I had shared last month, but just wanted to make sure folks got a chance to see that. I will just quickly show additionally here a report that was run just today, just so you can kind of, it doesn't have revenue a component through Q2, but it does have expenses through today's date. And so you could see here on the bottom line here that our expenses are running well under budget. And this is primarily because of the capital expenditures. We ended up doing some of those projects with last year's money that we had planned for this year. And so just wanted to point that out, that we do have some flexibility for this year.
Good. All right. And then with Mike not here tonight, we're not going to do any legal update then?
No,
And we had it
but
in the packet.
his June report is
It's
in the packet.
Yep, and we talked last time.
Pretty comprehensive.
Okay. All right, I was wondering how we were going to move on to the unfinished business with the presentation for the audit, because I didn't see her here, but I saw you must have her online then.
Yes.
Okay.
Anna Anderson, as I mentioned, is with Harrington Langer Associates and provided the draft audit. She's joining us via Zoom, and so I can turn it over to Ms. Anderson.
Good evening, everyone.
Can
Can you hear me okay?
hear you, yes.
Great, fantastic. Okay, so again, I'm Anna Anderson from Harrington Langer Associates. I am here tonight to present the annual financial report as a result of our audit that we did on the financials as of December 31st, 2020. I believe Mark is going to show you on the screen a copy of the audit. On pages 1 and 2, we have the independent auditor's report. This report has 5 main components to it. The first is management's responsibility for the financial statements. The second is the auditor's responsibilities for the financials. The third section is the opinion. We have issued an unmodified or clean audit opinion, meaning that the financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects, and they are in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. The next section is the other matters. This just describes the required supplementary information that is at the end of this report. And then the last paragraph mentions the internal controls report that we issue as well. We go on to page 3. We look at the management's discussion and analysis. This is where I'm going to spend the majority of the time tonight. I'm going to highlight some key financial information of the organization. We're going to talk about the basic financial statements. There's 3 main financial statements. The first is a statement of net position. This is similar to a balance sheet. It lists the assets, the outflows of resources, liabilities, deferred inflows of resources, and then the overall net position. Yep, I'm on page 3. Yeah, up one more. There we go. Thank you. The second statement is the statement of revenue, expenses, and changes in net position. And the third statement we're going to look at is the statement of cash flows. We move on to the next page. Page 4 gets into the financial highlights. At December 31st, 2020, the commission had a net position of $3,838,000, of which $2.4 million represented the amount invested in capital assets. And then at December 31st, there was $1.4 million designated for capital equipment replacement. The commission's net position increased about $187,000 over the prior year. We go down to that table kind of at the bottom of the page. This chart is a condensed version of the organization's net position. It lists the major assets. Total assets were $4.6 million. This is an increase of about $275,000 from the prior year, mainly due to an increase in accounts receivable, as well as equipment and cash. Then we have some deferred outflows, which are related to pension, which we'll cover in the footnotes. The liabilities of the organization, total liabilities were about $816,000. This is mainly comprised of just your regular accounts payable, as well as the return to member cities. This had a small increase, and again, that is due to the increase in the due to member cities. Then we have the deferred inflows. This is related to the pension plan as well. If we take the assets plus the deferred outflows, minus the liabilities, minus the deferred inflows, we get what we say is the net position. So you have a net position invested in capital assets of $2.4 million and an unrestricted net position of $1.4 million. Overall, the net position again increased about $187,000 from the prior year.
So Anna, the deferred inflows are progressing down. What is that? What does that due to?
It's related to the pension plan. We'll cover that a little more in the footnotes. The pension plan itself, all the figures are actuarially determined, and these fluctuate from year to year based on a few different measures, but we'll cover that in a little bit.
All right.
We go on to page 5, the changes in that position. Operating revenues were 1.78 million, an increase of about 44,000 from the prior year. And you had some general revenues. So your total revenues were 1.795 million, and this is about a $42,000 increase from the prior year. Expenses are down a little bit. In the prior year, in 2019, there was just the Hero Center grant payment. That was a little over $500,000, which accounts for the majority of that decrease. Again, if we look at revenues minus expenses, we get that change in net position of $187,000. The bottom of the page talks about your revenues and your major revenue streams. These are the same as prior years. The organization mainly gets its revenues from franchise fees and PEG fees. The expenses of the organization are mainly made up of wages, benefits, occupancy, franchise fee reimbursements, and depreciation. And the commission was able to return $281,000 to its member cities in 2020. On to the top of page 6, capital assets. Capital assets at December 31st amounted to $2.4 million. And the commission acquired approximately $426,000 of new equipment and leasehold improvements during the year. When we compare the actuals to the budget, revenue was approximately $239,000 higher than expected. And related to that, because revenues were higher, expenses were also over budget by about $187,000 due to the franchise fee reimbursements to the member cities. Any questions on this management discussion and analysis before we look at the actual financial statements themselves?
Nope, doesn't look like it.
Okay. Let's go on then to page 7. This is the full presentation of the statement of net position. Again, we already covered a lot of the highlights. At the top of the page, you see under current assets, your cash and investments make up the majority of that, about $1.6 million. You have your capital assets of the $2.4 million. And in the middle of the page, you see the total assets of $4.6 million. Under the liability section, we have accounts payable and accrued expenses, also just your standard items. And then again, a net pension liability. In the bottom of the page, we see your net position. Overall, the commission has a very strong net position, and you have a lot of really liquid assets. Your assets are mainly made up of the cash and investments and also equipment. On to page 8, operating revenue, or excuse me, the statement of revenue, expenses, and changes in net position. The main item at the top of the page, total operating revenue of $1.78 million. Operating expenses are fairly consistent with the prior year and the majority of the items there. Professional fees are down a little bit. That's mainly due to lower legal fees than in 2019. Dues and conferences are down about $22,000. That's mainly due to COVID. Those conferences just were not attended in person. And then you also see the Hero Center grant of $577,000 from 2019, and there was not a grant in 2020. And then the bottom of the page there shows that change in net position of $187,000. One of the calculations that we like to look at to just kind of see the financial health of the organization is we try to calculate how much it takes to operate on a monthly basis. And if we take the operating expenses of the 1.6 million, divide that by 12, it costs about $134,000 per month to operate the commission. And if we divide that into your unrestricted net positions, that'll be the net position that does not include the part that's invested in capital assets. You have about 11 months or so of reserves. And typically we see anywhere from 3 to 6 months. So you have a very strong position. All right, moving on to page 9, the statement of cash flows. This statement reconciles the increase in cash and investments. At the top of the page, you'll see the net cash provided by operations of $476,000. And then from that, we subtract the acquisition of capital assets of $426,000. And then there was some interest income of about $5,000, leading us to that change in cash and investments of $55,000. Any questions on the footnotes, the financial statements before we go on to the footnotes?
Nope.
Okay. So the footnotes start on page 10. These notes provide details to the financial statement readers. Note 1 has a lot of standard definitions and required language that is required by government accounting standards. So I'm going to have you scroll on to note 2, which is on page 13. Note 2, deposits and investments. Just want to point out that all of the deposits are fully insured as required by state statute. At the bottom of the page, it lists the investments and the 4M fund of $1.5 million. On the top of page 14, we show a table of the capital assets, the beginning balances, the additions. There were no major disposals during the year, and then the year-end balances. At the bottom of the page, this is where the pension plan footnote starts. And this spans multiple pages 14 through 21. It provides details of the Public Employees Retirement Association plan that the commission is a part of. On page 15, kind of towards the top of the page, it talks about the benefits that are provided. PARA provides retirement, disability, and death benefits. We scroll on to page 16. There are contributions. And the commission's contribution to the General Employees Fund for 2020 was $34,103. And this is equal to the required contributions as set by state statute. The next section talks about the pension costs. And as I mentioned previously, all of these costs are actuarially determined. And that measurement date is 6/30 of 2020. The table on page 17. This shows us information, as you had asked about previously, about the deferred outflows of resources and the deferred inflows. So because the actuarial measurement date is June 30th, there's kind of some timing differences. We have to make those numbers match up with our year end, which is December 31st. So we have some deferred outflows and deferred inflows of resources. And so the $67,236 there as a deferred outflow, that was listed on the statement of net position as an asset. And then the deferred inflow of $23,316, that was listed as a liability. So essentially, it's just timing differences from when these things were measured to the contributions that were made after the measurement date as well. Does that clear up your question?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
I think our audit process was later in the year last year due to COVID.
Oh, okay, okay. I thought, yeah, we were consistent from year to year doing it at the same time, so, okay. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yep. Then on to page 18. The top, the total pension expense recognized by the commission for 2020 was $20,164. And then the next page or two kind of lists all of the actuarial assumptions that were used. There was a small change in the inflation rate. And then on page 19, it lists all the other assumptions that they used to make their calculations and determinations of these numbers. On page 20, scroll a little bit farther, there's a table that shows the different asset holdings and the different rates of return for those items. And then on to page 21, it talks about the pension liability sensitivity. So again, these are estimates and these calculations are very sensitive. So this table in the middle of the page shows what the change in liability would be if the discount rate was adjusted up or down just by 1 percentage point. So you could really have a fluctuation in the net pension liability if these estimates change just a little bit. Note 5, the borrowing arrangements. The commission has a credit card, which they can borrow up to or charge up to $42,900. Outstanding advances on this credit card were $3,288 at December 31st, and these amounts are included in accounts payable. Bottom of the page, note 6, board designated unrestricted net position. $1.4 million of funds was designated for capital equipment replacement. Top of the next page, franchise fee reimbursement. The table there shows the amounts returned to member cities. The commitment footnote, note 8. The commission has an operating lease for facilities, and that facility lease was extended during the year to August of 2024. So the table there shows the future lease commitments that need to be paid on that lease. And then the bottom of the page, risk management. There were no significant reductions in insurance from previous years or any settlements in excess of insurance as well. So this concludes the footnotes and the audited financial statements. The rest of this report is just some supplementary information. So I'm going to have you scroll to page 28, which shows our report on internal controls. Thank you. All right, so our report on internal controls we're required to issue. In the middle of the page, you'll see the internal controller financial reporting. There were 2 deficiencies that we found for the commission. These are similar to prior years. We'll have details of them on page 30. During our audit process, we do test the controls of the commission, but we are not actually issuing an opinion on the effectiveness of those controls. We're mainly just checking to make sure that you are in compliance with what you say that you're doing. We found no other instances of non-compliance or any other matters that are required to be reported under government auditing standards. And then page 29 is just the second part of that report. So if we go on to page 30, this, the next page there, that lists the schedule of findings and responses. So the 2 items listed here, again, same as previous years. The first one is the lack of segregation of duties. This condition is common to organizations of your size due to the limited number of office personnel. And our recommendation to you, management and the board, we just ask that you continue to provide supervision and review policies and financial information on a regular basis. The second item is the financial reporting process. Like many similarly sized organizations, the commission has requested assistance from us, the auditors, with drafting these financial statements and footnotes. So essentially, we're just putting it in this format. The commission maintains its own books and accounting records, but we are just putting it in this required format. And again, we recommend that you continue to monitor the financial activities and provide oversight of the reporting process. And this is a very common practice to most organizations of your size. Any questions on either of those 2 items?
So the lack of segregation of duties, and I think that seems familiar from previous years, like you said. So having the treasurer duties by one of the commissioner versus the executive director doing the day-to-day, is that that not sufficient enough for the segregation of duties, or what would be additional segregation of duties that would take this away, I guess?
So essentially, to completely get rid of the lack of segregation of duties, you would have to have an accounting staff of between 5 to 7 people. And obviously that's just not in your budget to do. So you do the best that you can. And you have the executive director, you have an outside accountant that maintains the books, and then your treasurer and board is involved as well.
Right. Okay.
All right, then let's move on to the management letter, which is the last piece that I'm going to talk about tonight. This letter provides required communications in regard to our audit. There were no significant issues. There were no new accounting policies adopted during the year. At the bottom of this first page, it talks about the estimates that were used in relation to the pension plan and those actuarial calculations, and that those estimates are sensitive. So if something were to change, it could definitely impact the financial statements. But per June 30th of 2020 in their calculations, those were the figures that they had. So it's just basically telling you that those were estimates. On to page 2, we had no difficulties encountered when performing the audit. No major corrected or uncorrected misstatements, no disagreements with management, and no other audit issues or findings. And this concludes my presentation on the annual report. Do you have any other questions for me?
One question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that very well put together presentation. We actually just completed our annual audit for the city of Cottage Grove, so this has been audit month. Got to hear all about audits from both organizations. My question has to do with healthcare costs. When you look at the line items for costs, most organizations, especially public organizations, are really struggling to keep up with healthcare costs, but it actually looks like we're doing pretty well with SWCTC. So I'm just curious if you have any go forward advice as it relates to managing that line item effectively, because the market will do what the market will do, and healthcare costs continue to be a real challenge. And for a small organization, my suspicion is that could get out of control pretty quickly if we don't stay on top of it.
Yes, that's correct. I mean, it's definitely an issue that a lot of organizations are facing, especially small ones. And at this point, you've been able to keep things, pretty much under control. And to retain talent, benefits are definitely something that everyone looks at. So my recommendation is just if things do, start creeping up, that you continue to look at other options. It might be becoming part of a larger group. I know some payroll places such as ADP or Paychex, they have their own ways that you can become part of a group plan. So you're not just such a standalone individual, but those are things that you'd want to look up if, that happens and your prices do increase.
So Mark, is that something that's really in the realm of the HR committee for you guys to be talking and reviewing that? And
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. And that's our intent, is to really go through the plans, Councilmember Olson, and look at options going forward.
The recommendation about becoming part of a larger group is actually what I was hoping she would say. So she read my mind, the check's in the mail. But, there are several larger consortiums that government agencies have access to. So for the HR committee, that might be something to look into.
Okay. Thank you, Anna.
Right. Yeah, you're
Thanks,
welcome.
guys.
I just want to say thank you, Mark, and your staff for having everything together for us for the audit and making this really a smooth process again this year.
Yeah, and I want to say thank you to Mark and staff and then to Anna, because I know from the city of Woodbury how much of an effort that is to do the annual audit. We just got our results too. And I mean, finance is busy for several months, it seems like, preparing for the audit. So I know it's not an easy task. So thank you.
Thanks. Great working with you.
Yeah. All right. Moving
You're
on.
welcome. You're welcome to go if you like.
I think you just have to also vote to.
Oh, yes, yes,
accept
yes,
the
yes.
audit. Mhm.
Oh, that's right.
I'll move to accept the audit.
Very good.
Second.
Second, all right. Do we need a roll or can we do voice vote? Okay.
Voice.
All right, so all those in favor of accepting the audit results indicate by aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, it's been accepted. Thank you, Anna.
Yes, thank you. Have a good night.
All right, you too. All right, that's it for unfinished business. Oh, look at that happy man on the screen there. Okay.
Please second.
So moving on is, we don't have anything listed. Does any of the commissioners have anything for new business to discuss? Commissioner Olson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mark, I have a question about something that I happened upon. I was listening to a public radio program, and there was a gentleman on who was discussing the fact that cutting the cord, as it were, has really been a challenge for various cable outlets over the last number of years. That's no surprise to anybody. But that it seems as though the costs that end users are now experiencing after cutting the cord are increasing dramatically as some of these specialty programming channels, and they were really focused on the sports channels, are charging more and more for access. And then it's sort of an a la carte menu of, well, if you want to watch the old games, you have to pay X. And then they started talking about the Peacock network and how that is working. And the crux of the conversation was that there are actually people who are now regretting their choice to cut the cord and are moving back into a more traditional programming model, such as Comcast, for example. Now, I don't know if there's any evidence to bear that out, and that's really why I'm asking the question is, we've been lamenting the fact that we get fewer and fewer subscribers. Are we seeing any kind of a rebound? Are you hearing that same thing in the world that you live in with MACTA? Because it seems to me like that would be something we would feel good about if that were actually true. I just don't know if it was, a couple of people that were putting forth a supposition or if it's actually fact-based.
Well, time will tell. And what it looks like over the last 2 quarters is that there has been some rebound. And this is kind of some speculation that's been going on for a while now. 2 years ago when the FCC was looking at the 621 order, we were really potentially looking at, some significant loss of revenue on top of the cord cutters. And so in my time here and monitoring the revenue, we had been losing about 4% of revenue from consumer choice, I believe. It's what I call the slow drip. And so we had been losing some revenue, but Q4 of last year and Q1 of this year, there was a bit of some rebound. So I think what we're seeing is as these products become more available, cable television is still a unique service. And Comcast knows what they're doing, right? They know how to stay competitive, and they have a large market share. And so, I think what we thought 2 years ago would kind of the sky is falling kind of scenario, I don't really think it's playing out in the marketplace.
Thank you for that. The individuals who were talking about it were putting forth an idea that this rebound was actually going to gain momentum. It was going to become more prevalent because of the costs associated with some of these a la carte or individual channel choices, and even some of the Hulus and the Netflix and that sort of thing. So it'll be interesting to watch how that plays out. But certainly, from what you're hearing, the last 2 quarters would bear out what they're saying is actually true, which is encouraging. Thank you for that.
Yep. Thanks for the question.
Chair, I guess.
Commissioner Thede?
Been quiet over here, kind of.
That surprises me.
Me too. Yeah, and that is interesting, Justin, on that trend. And one of the other things that we're seeing is like with like the Peacock and so forth, which is more of a basket of stuff, but it's still coming streaming, starts to resemble, more of like the Comcast and the cable. And I just got a question now, the PEG fees, those are just cable subscribers also. It's not all of the streaming or any of the internet activity, right?
That's correct. Cable television is regulated to allow for the franchising and PEG fee revenue component, but wireless and broadband technologies are not regulated.
So as we've talked about before, right now you think about it, and it turns out that we make our programming available to everybody on the internet. Yet there's only a subset of people that are really paying for it. And, that's something, and I would think that that'd be a great argument, at least for like PEG fees or something of that nature, to say, well, something like PEG fees should apply to everybody that's using the internet, okay? We certainly don't think we want to try to start saying, well, only people that are, contributing to the pot get to watch the programming. I don't think we're at that point, but it's something to kind of keep in our minds that is a reality, that,
Well, ultimately, I'd say, municipalities should keep an eye on that because it's your revenue, and I would ask that when you do have a chance to engage with either the League of Minnesota Cities or other elected officials, that you talk about that if you are concerned about the loss of revenue, to bring that topic up and talk about ways we can build a coalition to address it.
Great.
Anyone else? Any questions, comments for Mark? Very good. Seeing nothing else on the agenda, I guess I would,
I think there was still commission comments.
is there,
I
okay,
think
that's
that
what,
came under new business.
okay.
It was just-
I assumed that was commission comments, because, okay.
Maybe it was.
I got one then.
You have a commission comment?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
Down in Great Cloud, we still have we have 4 properties that don't have Comcast even run down our street down to Geneva there. And we were kind of looking at the American Rescue Plan and possibly be able to use some of that money. I guess I'm not sure how to start, what do I need to do, I guess, to get a bid or quotes or down that avenue to see if we can put it towards just getting it ran down the street, at least more available for homeowners.
I'm happy to work on it with you, so I
Okay.
can reach out to you
Okay.
and we can connect and talk with Cheryl there at
Yep.
Great Cloud as well and get our attorney involved if
Okay.
need be.
Yeah.
When we last talked about this, wasn't it that we needed someone, that they wouldn't cover it entirely, you needed something that would be,
That was the broadband grant program through the
Okay.
state. And so they had to have a matching grant.
matching funds?
Yeah,
Okay.
but he's talking about the American Rescue Plan, which is the federal program.
So, okay, we haven't
I
talked about
believe
that
has-
as a group then.
I
Yeah.
believe to a certain extent has more flexibility built into it, but we'll see.
And the state just allocated another $37 million for broadband access in this year's budget. So I'm glad you brought it up, because I actually had a conversation with Senator Brigham about it the other day, because you'd mentioned it before. And that's the intent of those dollars, is to solve situations like yours.
Reach out to you, Mark.
Yeah, well, again,
stand behind you.
Right, because you need help with the process.
Yeah,
mean,
I don't know.
just keep in mind, though, that with the state's broadband program, we need a matching grant from either, a resident or a corporation, potentially the commission, that would be up to the commission to decide.
Can they
But-
use the American Rescue Fund as the matching grant now?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, we'll get together and, throw
Okay.
some ideas around, see what we can come up with.
Okay. That's great. Great idea.
Yeah, I don't know if you have any resources that are available to you that would help navigate that through MACTA or?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Definitely.
okay,
Yeah, thanks for asking.
all right. Good. All right, any other commission comments or requests? All right, hearing none, then I would entertain a motion, a second for the adjournment.
So moved. Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.
Great seeing everyone.